Hi guys, Agent Uncle here. If you don't know me, I am a multidisciplinary writer and editor, which is a fancy way of me saying I write what I want and I edit what people want me to edit, and I have a grand old time with it. I'm in my swivelly chair because it's 9:45, and I finally was like, "You need to record a YouTube video. Everyone's gonna think you're dead." I was like, "Okay," so I'm doing that. But today I want to talk about this incredible opportunity that I've had, that every time I think about it and the reality sets in, I'm like, because a 10-minute play that I wrote called What You Make of It is being included in a staged reading festival in Connecticut. For context, if you don't know, I'm from the Midwest. I am from South Dakota, which if you're not from South Dakota, you might not know where South Dakota is on the map, and that is okay. But this is my first time getting any semblance of any of my work ever to the East Coast, to any coast. This is my first time getting my work outside of South Dakota. So, big, crazy deal. So, let me talk about it. So, I wrote even the story of how the 10-minute play came about is a really odd one, because I because I search for play submission opportunities a lot, because I have a lot of plays that I want to share with the world. So I keep looking all the time for more like playwriting contests and script submission opportunities, and there was one that I found for a 10-minute play where the prompt was like, write about a time where the food was the best food you've ever had, but the service was the worst you've ever had. And I was like, oh wow, okay. And the deadline for that competition was literally like the next day. So I said to myself, you know what? I've got like a couple hours to kill. Let's test to see if I can write a 10-minute play, because I have a very well established format for writing, like 1 acts and even 2 acts now. We're going to talk about that in a different video if I post about Bud and Mary. Short form plays have been a little bit of a struggle for me, because every time I've tried to write a 10-minute play, it usually ends up being at least 15 or 20 pages, and I'm like, that's objectively not a 10-minute play. That is a 15-minute play, that is a 20-minute play, and according to some places online, a 20-minute play is its own 1 act. I don't know, this might be a hot take, but a 1 act is like, I'd say that me personally, I wouldn't call one of my works a 1 act unless it was at least 25 pages long. Like, that's how my brain works. But to each their own, and the system has its own standard, and it's not that big a deal. The point is, it's a play. But anyways, I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? I don't really want to write about my own customer service experience, because I've worked in food service. And I don't want to make up a story about someone being an asshole to another person because they were having a bad day, because that's often the reason why you're getting bad service at a restaurant, is because you caught the worker at a bad time, they're having a rough day, they might have had a loss in the family, they might be sick. So it's like, I don't really want to write about that. What I do want to write about is this really wackadoo restaurant called Destiny's Diner, where allegedly people go there, and if they eat the food, eventually their dream comes true. So that was the premise, and I was like, that's hilarious. I'm going to write about that. So then I named the characters Vic and Tori, and I was like, the entire time I was writing, I was like, yeah, and then they're going to do this. It was very much like I let myself play with this script. And but they're both very, very interesting characters, because Vic is a very disgruntled worker. They've been at this job for several years. This was the job they had through college, and they're still holding on to it, because in this economy you can't get any other job. But Tori runs in right before Vic is about to close down. Like, they're literally closing down the till, and Tori slams a bunch of money down on the counter and is like, that'll be your tip if you make me a meal, because I have a very important job interview tomorrow and I want a meal from you guys to help me get that job. So then as Vic accepts the bribe, the two of them start talking about what it means to work for what you want, what it means to trust that it's going to be given to you, that you're going to earn it. How some people only like come, like Vic talks about how people come through my restaurant for years and years and years, and they keep telling me, like, one of these days, Vic, I'm gonna walk out that door and you're never gonna see me again because I'm finally gonna get my dream. And then they come back the next day because they aren't putting in the work. So they both have a very interesting opposing ideologies that really speak a lot to, like, Tori is a very optimistic person, very happy-go-lucky, very energetic, whereas Vic has been running the ones the entire time, is very like, they know how the system works, they are stuck in the system, they don't want to be at this job, they don't have a choice, and they've had to work very hard to get anything that they've ever wanted in life. So that was a very fun like thought experiment to run through with that play, and I finished the script in 90 minutes, which I said to myself, I did not know I could finish an entire 10-minute play and go, yeah, that's good, in 90 minutes or less. So I was like, oh, cool, great. So then I submitted it to the theater company, like, festival that created the prompt, and I sent it off, and I can't remember, I think I haven't heard back from them, or I think they might not have picked mine, which, fair. Like, so far, literally, I've had 3 successes, I think, yeah, 3 successes out of like 40 submissions, which is pretty good for me. Like, I would like even 3 out of 40, that's really good, like, in my mind, and I'm completely happy with that. But I'm just gonna keep racking up the rejections. We're gonna keep going. But then you can imagine my surprise when, in, like, I think it was early June, I get an email from a theater company called Throne Stone Theater Company, and they say, hey, we really liked your 10-minute play, What You Make of It. We want to include it in our festival, because I submitted it to their festival like 2 days after I wrote What You Make of It. And I said, this is a joke. No way. But I did some research and I was like, what? And yeah, that's how I found out my work got submitted, like, got accepted. So I did some more research on it, and they were like, my contact with Thornstone was like, yeah, this is like a staged reading opportunity. You're one of 5 playwrights in the professional slot. And I said, the professional slot? And then I remembered because I submitted this like back in like early May, late May, early June, somewhere. It was not long after I finished the school year. I dropped my pencil, sorry. But if you heard that. If you didn't, that's embarrassing, but whatever. And I remembered suddenly that, yeah, in order to submit, you had to classify, you were either in high school or college, which I wasn't anymore, or you were considered a professional playwright, which in order to do that, you had to have had one of your, had a full-length play produced for a paying audience, which I had happen to me in February of 2026 with the Premier Playhouse's premieres. So I technically did get, and then I technically qualified, and I had to sit there and I was like, I'm being considered a professional playwright. Like, a theater company is unironically calling me a professional playwright. And I was completely like, what? I couldn't, I was inconsolable in the best way possible. I was literally like running around my apartment, and like I would not shut up about it to my roommate. And then it got crazier, because then I looked at the roster of the 4 other playwrights that I'm in the evening slot with, and tell me why one of them is the commissioned playwright for that theater company. Like, she is writing her name is Dana Schwartz. She has a very extensive resume, and she is literally writing, like, she's Thronestone's like 2026 2027 commissioned playwright, so she's like big over there already. And then I've got the list up behind me because I want to like shout out my fellow playwrights, my fellow professional playwrights. This is the wildest thing. And then there's Frankie D. Gonzalez. He is a freaking Dramatists Guild of America representative for North Texas. I literally, and I'll talk about this, I'll talk about End of Play more in the Bud and Mary video, but he literally, I met him like 2 days before the news dropped at the End of Play kickoff festival, where he was like, hi, I'm a North Texas representative for the Dramatists Guild. And then 2 days later, it's like, hey, our work's being featured alongside each other, and I'm from Podunk, South Dakota. Like, what? And then there's Marshall Logan Gibbs, and they are a very produced, like, coast to coast playwright. They've got a very extensive resume too. And then there's Jack Karp, who is also like has a lot of stuff happening in Los Angeles and like big names and stuff like that. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, comparing my like bio for the 5 professional playwrights compared to the other 4 people, I'm like, this is very much feeling like Hydrogen Bomb versus Coughing Baby, and I am the Coughing Baby, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, this is my first time getting any of my work outside of the city I live in. And even then, that's only a 10-minute play staged reading. But I literally, like, the more I found out about this festival, the more I was losing my mind, because I was like, this is what I've been working to try and get any of my stuff out to either coast for, like, since I started submitting plays. So basically since I graduated college, and even a little bit before then. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, to have a play that I wrote be thrown into a list of other people who are way more accomplished than I am, and has like a longer resume, has way more experience, respected in the community, like, it's very humbling and very honoring. And I'm very, very blessed to have had this opportunity. It's still crazy to me. I'm really sad I can't go to the festival because it is in Connecticut and I do live in South Dakota, and that is a 21-minute drive or like a $600 flight. And I do, in fact, that's not possible for me, but I'm hoping that and here's the craziest thing. The festival's not the end of it, because there are judges for the festival. So the way it's working is, like, in the afternoon slot with like the high school and collegiate playwrights, one of those like 5 scripts is going to be selected as the winner from that slot, and they're going to be performed. That one's the winning script from the afternoon slot is going to join us in the evening slot. And then there are like 4 festival judges who are all very like big names in like the Connecticut area, and they're going to pick like an overall festival winner, and there's also an audience choice award. So I don't think I'm gonna win either of those, and I'm not expecting to. The fact that my work, like, I like slid a little funny script I wrote in 90 minutes to this theater company, and they said, hey, that's cool, get over here. It's like, that is more than enough. That being said, if I get an email saying that I won something, I am in fact going to print out my script, and I am in fact going to eat it. That is how sure I am that it's not going to happen. And if it does, it'll be really freaking funny. But yeah, it's very, very awesome opportunity, and I'm very happy. I made like a little promo for it on like my social medias. If you follow me over there, you can see that. Throwing Stone, I'm gonna tag them in it so that you can follow them and see what other cool things they do, because they're like their whole MO is like promoting like new works and things like that. So I'm really appreciative of that. So anyways, yeah, that is my work getting up to Connecticut. Yippee! So thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.